So slope correction for failed ligament surgery. Always good to learn from cases. So here's like a 37-year-old male who's had one ACL revision, and he comes back again with a failed ACL. And I think when you see patients like these who have got gross laxity patterns, we need to really understand that there's something more that is happening rather than just the ACL failing over and over again. So obviously you want to go ahead and you want to do all the correct investigations that you do require. You want to look at all the x-rays. You want to look at the alignment. Alignment is neutral, and you don't want to forget the slope, which is also very critical. And what really is important is that when the slope increases, you will start seeing that you start getting a different series of change in events, which will then lead to certain biomechanical changes, which then causes problems. Again, as you evaluate any failed ACL, you want to check everything that can contribute to ACL failure. And this includes the collaterals, both on the medial and the lateral side. And of course, you want to then evaluate your tunnels, which are also very critical, both in the sagittal plane as well as on the Hertel's grid. And you want to find out as to whether they have been accurate or not. And you want to do the same for the femur as well, when you do superimpose all your images on again a Hertel's grid, and you want to check where exactly the tunnels should be, what are the preferred tunnel sites, and where the tunnels are. So what happens when we look at such complex situations where you have not only bone problems, you have soft tissue problems, your medial lateral meniscus is failing, and in these situations you need to deal with a plethora of options that we need to look at. And remember that bone always wins. So whenever you're dealing with these situations, your slope becomes the most important factor that you have to correct initially, which will then translate to your results. So with every 10-degree increase in slope, you get 6 millimeters increase in anterior tibial translation. This is a 9-degree tibial slope. You can see that there is translation. And when the slope increases to 15, you can see that the anterior tibial translation increases further. So this is, I think, the most important critical point, that when you're evaluating your slope on your long leg standing X-ray, the slope evaluation is important, but you also need to see the amount of anterior tibial translation that there is. And again, if you have loss of the medial or the lateral posterior third meniscus, this is even increased further because meniscus tears will accentuate because there's no soft tissue bumper left anymore. And that's really important. So if you look at this great paper which the Leo Pincheski's group wrote up, they looked at 20-year follow-ups. And if you are an adolescent and your slope was more than 12 degrees, only 22% of all the ACLs survived for 20 years. So 80% failure risk if you are young and if you have a high slope. How do you calculate your slope? You want to get a monopedal stance X-ray in which both the femur and the tibial condyles have to overlap. And I see a lot of patients coming with X-rays which don't have markers, which makes it very difficult to calculate how it is. The best way to measure your slope is on a full true long leg X-ray, and you need to measure the anatomic axis of the tibia in the sagittal plane, measure your slope, and then if it is more than 12, I think it becomes a very important indication that you should go ahead and fix your slope. You can do a slope correction supra at the level or infra tibial tuberosity. Supratibial tuberosity is attractive because you don't change, you have very quick healing, but then you're left with very small real estate. So if you make a very high or a very proximal cut in your tibia, then the challenge is that if by chance something goes wrong, you're left with a very thin wafer of bone, and that creates more challenges. With the advent of newer plates, I think we've started going more towards the infratuberosity. And always remember that if you have hyperextension, then for every degree of slope correction that you do, you will increase the extension in a certain way. So if someone starts off with the flexion contracture, that's good. But if someone has a pre-existing 15-20 degree hyperextension, you are more likely to make it worse. And that's why I do not prefer to do a supra TT, because then you may cause further problems itself. So what did I do for that patient? I did a slope correction below the tibial tuberosity. The amount of wedge resection that we measured was about 12. Again, an important point, the more distal you go, the larger wedge you have to remove. The more proximal you go, a smaller wedge you have to remove. So there is no thumb rule that says that 1 millimeter equals 1 degree and so on and so forth. So we changed the slope and brought it to 6 degrees from 22 degrees. And again, at the same time, we didn't alter the coronal plane, which is very important. Take out the bone that we get from doing the slope correction, use it to bone graft the tunnels, which is ready-made autograft, so you don't need to go to the iliac crest. Finish off all the meniscus work, the lateral root of the meniscus that was scarred down, released and re-repaired. And again, there was a ramp lesion which was not tackled, and you have to go ahead and repair both from the back and from the front. So you have to repair the meniscocapsular side, and you have to repair the meniscotibial ligament, and that's how you need to repair these type 4C lesions from the front and from the back. Go back again, look at it maybe 6 months later with a CT scan. You can see that everything has healed well. The tunnel for the root is in place, and then go ahead and do a second stage procedure which sorts him out. That's his 6-month X-ray, which shows that he's good. What about on the other side? So he's a 41-year-old male who's had a road traffic accident about 5 years ago. The femur was fixed, the nail was removed, but his PCL laxity was not tackled. And that's his problem today. Long leg X-rays, I think in the coronal plane, a bit of varus, that's fine. But look what's happening in the sagittal plane. He has a slope of only 3.6 degrees. And if you fail to correct that slope with such a large amount of translation, then you're more likely to have failure of your PCL, which is again very critical. So if you have a reverse slope, the femur is going to slide down, you're going to get a posterior tibial translation. The moment you restore the slope, the femur is going to slide back on the tibia and your translation will go away. Why is it important? Dr. Laprad's group looked at 100 patients who had a primary PCL reconstruction. They matched it with age and gender to another cohort of 100. They found out that those who had a PCL tear had an inherently lower slope, as you can see in the numbers that are given above. And when you tease down the PCL injured knee group into those who had a contact versus a non-contact injury, you can find that if you had a PCL injury because of a non-contact injury, you had an even lower slope. So low slopes will make you predisposed to getting a PCL tear, which is important. Surgical steps, the first thing is that you need to mark the proximal insertion of the tendon. You're going to do a 5 to 6 centimeter long TTO. You're going to pass your wires. You're going to do the osteotomy. You're going to open up. You're going to insert your bone graft, put back the tibial tuberosity, and restore the patellar tendon. And these are the same surgical steps when we do it, when we're doing a live demo or when we're doing it in surgery. And we were able to get this chap's slope back to about 10 degrees, which is important. So remember, if you're having a side-to-side difference of more than 12 millimeters when you do your posterior stress X-ray for a PCL, always look for a flat slope. That's very important and very critical. If you have a side-to-side difference between 8 to 11 or 12 millimeters, you may have an isolated PCL, but when you do a posterior raw stress X-ray, if it is more than 12, you have to look for a combined PCL PLC or a PCL MCL, or it's a PCL with a flat tibial slope, which is important. So what are the numbers that I want you to remember? For an ACL deficient knee, anything which is more than 12 degrees in a revision needs to be taken care of. In a primary ACL, if you have a slope which is more than 18, you should probably think of taking care of it. So many factors to be considered. For the PCL, in the revision situation, if you have a slope which is less than 4, you need to fix it. And in the primary situation, if you have a very large side-to-side difference of more than 12 millimeters with intact medial and lateral side, then you probably need to fix it as well. So remember these important take-home points. Do good long leg lateral X-rays, measure them properly, be very well versed in both the infra and the transtibial tubercle technique, and then decide based on your case whether it should be a single or a 2-stage. Thank you very much.